Pronoun problems. Who versus whom? Like some personal pronouns, who takes on a different shape when used as a direct object or any function besides a subject. Most people realize there is a difference between who and whom. The problem is remembering which form goes with what function. One solution is simply to remember the rule. Use the subject form only when the pronoun is a subject. See Chapter 7 for information on subjects and verbs. In these examples, note how the pronoun, underlined once, is the subject of the verb, underlined twice. I know who left early on Monday. Who is ready? Grammar tip, a verb afterward. If the pronoun is quickly followed by a verb, use who. This tip will work most of the time because the subject is normally followed immediately by a verb, as seen in the two examples just given. It is possible, though, to have an adverb such as almost coming between a subject and its verb. The object form who is used in other situations. In the following sentences, whom is not followed by a verb and is not the subject of a verb. Thus, whom is the correct choice. You are speaking to whom? Ricardo is a person whom we can trust. The second example is harder to analyze because whom is out of order. Even though the sentence is correct, our intuition tells us whom should come after trust. For whom is the object, the direct object of the act of trust. You do not have to worry about where whom is placed. However, if you follow the verb afterward, tip. Is there a verb right after whom? No, so do not use who. Grammar tip, him and whom. Both him and whom end in the letter M, and both are object forms. Use whom only when him, not he, would be the appropriate choice. You might have to move words around and look only at part of the sentence to apply this tip. The second tip is gimmicky, but it works. Even when whom refers to a female in your sentence, use him in a paraphrase. If him works, use whom. If him does not work, use who. In these two examples, him would be the better choice, meaning whom is appropriate. Original sentence, test sentence. Original sentence, you are speaking to whom? You are speaking to him, test sentence. Original sentence, Ricardo is a person whom we can trust. We can trust him, test sentence. To apply this tip, focus on the part of the sentence involving the pronoun. In the first example, you might as well consider all of the sentence, but in the second example, you have to look just at the part of the sentence in which the pronoun is either a subject or an object. Consider the reverse of this tip. When he works better than him. Here are two instances where him clearly does not work, meaning who is indeed correct. Original sentence, I know who left early on Monday. Test sentence, him left early on Monday. Original sentence, who is ready? Test sentence, him is ready. Avoiding the problem, that versus who, whom. Avoid using that to refer to actual people. Instead, use who or whom. Most readers consider it acceptable, however, to use that when referring to a category or type of person. That versus who, whom. Up until the near end of the last century, it was considered incorrect to use that to refer to people. But the rules have eased, at least in regard to certain types of sentences. Still, we suggest you never use that to refer to a particular person or persons. In the following errors, that is used to refer back to specific individuals, a boy and a physician. You should thank the boy that returned your lost dog. Dr. Dolittle is a physician that I strongly recommend. Some people use that to avoid having to choose between who and whom. Once you understand the rule governing the use of who and whom, you know the correct versions of the preceding sentences are as follows. You should thank the boy who returned your lost dog. Dr. Dolittle is a physician whom I strongly recommend. As mentioned, the rules have recently relaxed somewhat. Most grammar textbooks and style guides still indicate you must use who or whom when referring to specific people, but a number also indicates you can use that to refer to a category or type of person, as seen here. We all need a leader that will improve morale. Any worker that arrives late will be given a warning. In both examples, that refers back to a type of person, not to someone in particular. Therefore, that is an acceptable choice for many readers. But what if your readers do not approve of that used in this way? Or what if you use that when you incorrectly believe it refers to a type of person, a term that is not altogether clear at times? For these reasons, we suggest you avoid using that at all to refer to people. Save that for inanimate objects, animals, ideas, etc. These examples are perfectly fine uses of that. We all need a system that will improve morale. Any payment that arrives late will be returned. Summary. The pronouns who and whom are not interchangeable, for who is the subject form while whom is the object form. Use who when it is the subject of a verb, otherwise use whom. Usually you can look at the word right after the pronoun to determine which form to use. Use who if there's a verb right afterward. Use whom otherwise. You can also associate whom with him. Both end in the letter M. Use whom when him makes better sense. Use who when he works best. Avoid using that to refer back to people, although some readers consider it acceptable to use that if it refers to an abstract category of people. Vague pronouns. As explained earlier, a pronoun is a word that takes the place of a noun. Many people associate the term pronoun with words such as he, she, it, you, and they. However, there are other types of pronouns as well, such as everybody, which, who, whom, each, that, and this. Some, but not all pronouns bend back to refer to a previous noun or pronoun. This is, some pronouns derive their meaning by referring back to an antecedent. In this example, the pronoun it bends back to refer to the word dog. My dog knew it was in trouble for eating our lunch. If it did not have an antecedent, the pronoun would not have meaning. In the next example, the pronoun this means something only if readers connect the pronoun with the antecedent wallet. I found your missing wallet. Put this in your pocket right now. Pronouns that often or always require antecedents include the following: this, that, these, those, both, some, many, most. He, she, him, they, them, which, who, either, which. As we will discuss shortly, the guidelines and suggestions in this section apply to various pronouns, but we will focus on 3 particular pronouns: this, that, and it. What's the problem? Pronouns that require an antecedent must clearly refer back to a previous noun or pronoun. When they fail to do so, a vague pronoun results, meaning that the writer or speaker is not communicating effectively. The blame tends to be placed on the vague pronoun, but usually the source of the pronoun is the lack of a clear antecedent. In this example, the underlined pronoun does not clearly refer back to one noun or pronoun. I had to run outside even though the weather was terrible and it was bad. Does it refer to the weather, to running outside, or to both? True, we understand the basic idea of the sentence, and the statement might be fine in informal communication when precision is not so important. Nonetheless, the rule is that you should avoid vague pronouns in formal writing, or in any situation when you want to communicate your ideas as exactly as possible. Avoiding the problem. If a pronoun needs an antecedent, make sure the pronoun refers back to the nearest logical noun or pronoun. 3 guidelines for avoiding vague pronouns. We can suggest 3 specific guidelines for avoiding vague pronouns. 1. The antecedent must be a previous noun or pronoun. 2. Whenever possible, place the pronoun and its antecedent in the same sentence. They usually support each other best when placed in the same sentence. If necessary, the antecedent can be in the sentence immediately preceding the pronoun. 3. Avoid having any other noun or pronoun come between a pronoun and its antecedent. If it is impractical to adhere to this suggestion, make sure the intervening noun or pronoun cannot logically refer to the pronoun. Antecedents must be nouns or pronouns. The first suggestion is a rule. An antecedent must be a noun or pronoun. Remember that the definition of a pronoun states it is a word that takes the place of a noun or pronoun and not any other part of speech, and certainly not an entire sentence, paragraph, etc. And this next error, that seems to refer to an entire sentence. Joanna went to the park yesterday and played with her children. That was nice. Even if you think you understand what that means, the sentence is grammatically incorrect because pronouns take the place of nouns or pronouns, not sentences. Pronouns and antecedents need to be close. The second suggestion is not a true rule. However, placing the antecedent and pronoun in the same sentence reduces the possibility that readers will be confused about the meaning of your pronoun. It is still possible to have a clear pronoun if the antecedent is in the sentence right before the pronoun. In both examples that follow, the pronoun and antecedent are sufficiently close. Because the phone was not working, it had to be repaired. On top of my car, someone had left a note. This was written to me. Intervening nouns and pronouns should be avoided. All of the correct examples provided so far also follow our third guideline for not having any noun or pronoun placed between a pronoun and an antecedent. The problem with putting a noun or pronoun in this position is that readers might mistakenly assume it is an antecedent. And this next example is it referring to monitor or computer. Tyrone's computer, which has a new monitor, is expensive. It is not working properly. Based on this sentence alone, we cannot determine what the writer intended it to mean. Because monitor is the closest noun, it, grammatically speaking, refers to monitor. Even if the meaning is indeed what the writer intended, the sentence is still poorly written because many readers will think that the computer, not the monitor, is working improperly. To correct such a problem, the sentence must be reworded so readers do not have to choose between two or more possible antecedents. Here is one possible revision. Tyrone's expensive computer is not working properly, and he just bought a new monitor for it. Look again at the revision. This rewrite happens to contain the pronoun it to refer to computer, which appears much earlier in the sentence. Our third guideline indicates you should avoid having other nouns or pronouns come between a pronoun and its antecedent, yet the pronoun he comes between computer and it. As we also indicated, you can have an intervening noun or pronoun if this word could not logically be an antecedent. Our revision would not make sense at all if it stood for he. Thus, this sentence illustrates how you might put a noun or pronoun between the pronoun and antecedent. It is essential, however, that there be no way the pronoun could refer to this intervening word. Grammar tip: this, that, and it. When precision is important, keep an eye on your uses of this, that, and it to make sure they follow the three guidelines noted earlier. These three pronouns are especially prone to being used in vague ways. The perils of this and that as pronouns. As noted, the guidelines and rules covered in this section apply to all pronouns requiring an antecedent, but we have focused on this, that, and it. Most people are surprised when told these are the pronouns most often involved in vague pronoun errors. But these three pronouns are indeed most likely to have unclear antecedents. Certainly, you can use all three correctly, and it would be impossible to eliminate these words altogether from your speech and writing. Try in particular to eradicate the use of it, and you will soon find the attempt futile. We are suggesting that you closely monitor these pronouns to make sure they adhere to the three guidelines we have covered. In writing, always proofread carefully to make sure these three pronouns are used correctly and clearly. Grammar tip: use this and that as adjectives. Avoid using this and that as pronouns. Turn them into adjectives by following them immediately by a noun. Converting this and that to adjectives. Although using this and that as pronouns can be perfectly grammatical, you can avoid possible ambiguity by using them as adjectives instead. In this way, you do not have to worry about an antecedent at all because adjectives never require one. Notice how these errors have been corrected by supplying a suitable noun, underlined twice, after this, or that, underlined once. Joanna went to the park yesterday and played with her children. That was nice. Joanna went to the park yesterday and played with her children. That outing was nice. Carol told me apple juice is made from just the juice of apples, while apple cider is made from fermented apples. I already knew this. Carol told me apple juice is made from just the juice of apples, while apple cider is made from fermented apples. I already knew this distinction. You can add more than just a noun after this or that. but there should still be a noun right after the pronoun as seen here. A rock scraped the hood of my car and then hit the windshield. This ruined my day. A rock scraped the hood of my car and then hit the windshield. This sequence of events ruined my day. Our strategy depends on recognizing the difference between an adjective and a noun. See Chapter 1 for more information on these parts of speech. Summary. A pronoun is a word that takes the place of a noun or pronoun. Some pronouns require an antecedent, a previous word that supplies the meaning of the pronoun. The antecedent must be a noun or pronoun. The antecedent should appear in the same sentence as its pronoun, or in the sentence immediately preceding the pronoun. Avoid separating a pronoun and an antecedent with any other noun or pronoun, unless this intervening noun or pronoun could not logically be the antecedent. The pronouns this, that, and it are frequently used vaguely. If you immediately follow this or that with a suitable noun, you transform these pronouns into adjectives, meaning you do not have to worry about antecedents. Reflexive pronouns. Problems with self and selves words. The reflexive pronoun, or its name anyways, is a much less known type of pronoun. Reflexive pronouns are common and useful. They include the self pronouns such as myself, himself, and herself. In fact, all reflexive pronouns are formed by adding self or selves to a particular personal pronoun as seen in the table a little later. A reflexive pronoun is used to bend back, think of the words reflect or reflex. A true reflexive pronoun allows something to do something to itself, as shown in these examples. Congress gave itself a raise. The office manager hurt himself with a stapler. In these examples, the same people who perform the acts are also the recipients of the acts. In other words, the same people both perform and receive the actions. The reflexive pronoun allows us to state such an idea clearly and concisely. Try, in fact, to reword either sentence without using a self word. In more technical terms, a major function of the reflexive pronoun is to indicate that the subject of a sentence and the direct object are the same person, place, or thing. You can also use a reflexive pronoun in other ways, as long as the word it refers to is in the same sentence as seen in this example. The bird made a nest for itself. The pronoun is referring back to bird, so the sentence is correct. The bird is not really doing anything to itself, but the pronoun is correctly used as the object of the preposition for. Even if itself is not a direct object, the reflexive pronoun creates an effect similar to something doing something to itself. Be aware that there is another major function of reflexive pronouns, the so-called emphatic function. This function complicates matters a bit, so first we focus on true reflexive pronouns, those that follow the definitions just given. We will return to the emphatic function later. Personal pronouns and reflexive pronouns. Personal pronouns, corresponding reflexive pronouns. Personal pronouns, I, me, my, mine, corresponding reflexive pronouns, myself. Personal pronouns, you, your, yours, corresponding reflexive pronouns, yourself, yourselves. Personal pronouns, we, us, our, ours, corresponding reflexive pronouns, ourselves. Personal pronouns, he, him, us, corresponding reflexive pronouns, himself. Personal pronouns, she, her, hers, corresponding reflexive pronouns, herself. Personal pronouns, they, their, them, theirs, corresponding reflexive pronouns, themselves. Personal pronouns, it, its, corresponding reflexive pronouns, itself. What's the problem? 3 types of problems occur with reflexive pronouns. 1, some people use words that might look like reflexive pronouns, but actually are not acceptable words at all. 2, a true reflexive pronoun should normally have an antecedent in the same sentence. If not, there is likely an error. 3, it is incorrect to use a reflexive pronoun as the subject of a sentence. Avoiding the problem, non-existent reflexive pronouns. Reflexive pronouns must take one of the forms listed in the table given on the previous page. It is not unusual for people to think that other reflexive pronouns exist. However, there are no such words as his self, their selves, themselves, or ourself. The first 2 are the most common mistakes made in this regard. In fact, We hear these non-words so often that we might not even take notice, making it more likely we could commit these errors ourselves.